I'll go to import sets one more time.
Hello, sir. In my instance, I'm not getting the option like I tried to create the columns. I'm not getting the insert a new row option.
Insert a new row. Show me your
Yeah,
instance. What is?
in the columns.
Where is your instance?
Okay, just a second.
We have an external data source, and then we have the ServiceNow database, right? We created a table in ServiceNow which is known as service offering. All we need to know is how can we import data into this service offering table from an external source like Excel, CSV, or XML, right? These are structured data. Excel, CSV, and XML, all these are structured data. So you want to bring these structured data into your service offering table. How do you do that? The mechanism that we are going to refer right now is import sets. Okay, using import sets, import data from external data sources like Excel, CSV, or XML into your ServiceNow database within your service offering table. This is the objective of this class. Let's go back and go ahead and clean everything from this instance that we did yesterday. Everything that we did yesterday, I'm going to clean that. We will be recreating that. I don't have it here. Go to tables and columns. I'm going to delete this table as well, service offering table. The table is deleted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an update set, local update set. So we'll be keeping track of all the changes that we are doing for this into this update set only. I'll name it import set demo update set, right? Using this update set to I'll submit it and make it current. Now everything that I bring goes into this update set. Let's make this. Let's see if we can make this a global application here. We can't do that, so I don't want to be in the marketing events scope. So I'll go to global application, and this is not editable now. So I'll create a new one. Import set demo, and let's put a date or something. The date will be 22. This is our update set. So whatever changes we are going to do, this is within global application and is going to be there in import set demo update set. Now let's go there, go back to here. This external data source, this is our source table. This is our target table. So two entities we have, right? Source and target table. These two have to interact with each other. Now, when we do import data from external data source to ServiceNow database, we also do one thing. We do data transformation, right? So this is one step which you do to bring the data that you have in external data source in exactly the way you want to have the data into the service offering table, which is your target table, right? So this is data transformation step that we are doing. Now, in this course, you create a temporary table, and the temporary table is import set table. You create an import set table as well, right? That's here. So you bring the external data source data into the import set table using import set, and that import set table data is then transformed, and after transforming that data, you bring the data within the target table. That's it. As simple as that. Two-step process. Get the external data source data into an import set table, which is a temporary table or a staging table. Once you brought that data into the temporary table, create a transformation map and start transforming the data. And as you transform the data, you are able to bring that data into the target table. That's it. Now, let's go back. We are now into global application and import set demo update set. I'm going to create a table known as service offering. Remember, we do not have any service offering table now because we deleted that purposefully. I'm going to create a table which has some specifications like this. Let's go ahead and create one. Remember the scope, global import set demo data. The table that I am creating right now is service offering, right? I don't want to create any module, so I leave it. Application chosen is global. The table column that I want to create is service, string, device, string, submit it. And the table name we created is new service offering, right? This is our target table. New service offering is our target table. This one. Okay. Now let's go back and see this table, u underscore service underscore offering. This is the table. If I do dot list, we do not have any record in here. So we have a target table. We want to bring data into this target table from an external data source. And the data source that we have is this Excel file, serviceoffering.xls. Correct? So we want to bring data from this data from service offering to use service offering table. Okay? From this XLS to this table. Now remember, when we do that, we first have to create an import set table. We are assuming that this target table is already created, right? That's why we created the service offerings table, in the first step. Service offering table is created in the first step. Now let's go to import set, which happens to be our next step. I'll go to import step. Import set. And there we have this load data module, right? Now using this load data module, we are going to import data. So you can either create a table or use existing table. Remember, since I deleted all existing import set table, I only have the default ones, computer, location, notification, and user. And the kind of data that I have in this Excel file, I cannot accommodate that data into these tables. So I'll go ahead and create a new table here, right? And I'll name it as IM, IMP for import set, IMP service offering. And the name of the table comes to like source table becomes this UIMP service offering, right? So this will be our source table. Let's choose the file. I'm going to desktop and pick the service offering Excel file. Open it. And then we decided we have to pick the first row as a header row and first sheet as the data sheet. That's why we have sheet number 1 and header row number 1. Now let's submit it. We supplied everything we needed to supply and we submit it. Once we do that, we are done with this first step, which is import set table. The import set table has been now created, right? This stage is completed. Import set table is completed. The import set table now has data from the Excel file, right? Let's go and see. It says process 11, inserts 11, updates 0, errors 0, empty and ignored 0, ignored errors 0. Okay, let's go ahead and see the loaded data. When I open, I see 11 loaded, 11 records here, which is the data we are referring to. I'll quickly go ahead and remove these fields and pick the fields which are relevant for me to have. Something like this. See, 11 records from the Excel sheet has come into this IMP service offerings table, which is our source table here. IMP service offering. Okay. So we now have data into the import set table. Now, let's go ahead and create a transformation map, which happens to be our second step. Since we have the data here now, we will like to have the next step done, which is data transformation. So for data transformation, we have to create a transformation map. Let's go ahead and create a transformation map. I'll hit this link, create transform map. Now, I have the list of import sets available. The one that we are interested into right now is UIMP service offering. This is the source table. I'll create a transform map named service offering transformation. Pick the created date as today, and then I'll pick the target table. Remember, the target table in our case is U service offering. This is the name we should be looking for. So I'll go ahead and start typing service offering. See, U service offering. This is a table, target table. We want to have it here. We left run business rules right now, and that's what the field as is. We are not going to use any script, right? And then I'll go ahead and save it. So this transformation map, service offering transformation map, basically says that you have a relationship established between this table, and this table. So you actually establish a relationship now. But what are the relationships? What relationships have you developed between the two entities, the source table and the target table? This is what we decide using mapping assist, right? When we do mapping assist, all the columns from the import set table and all the columns from the ServiceNow table will be displayed here. Bring all the columns from ServiceNow table here and bring relevant columns from the import set table. Devices reference, so I have reference projects twice. Devices framework, reference project service technology testing too. Okay. Now we brought all the columns from the two tables. Now let's map these items. I know that one is left. Two. I know that devices should be mapped to device. Framework should be mapped to framework. Reference project should be mapped to project. Service offering should be mapped to service. Technology to technology. testing tools to testing tools and tools to tools. Any confusion up until now? We are now into the second step of data transformation, and we are creating a qualification criteria. We were mapping the source and target tables so that appropriate data from the service offering source data source or import set table goes into the right column into the table in service offering in ServiceNow. So that's why we have these mapping done. Let's save this. Any question up until now? When we save this, we get this source target field mapping. So right now we are done with mapping. Now that we are done with mapping, I'll quickly go ahead and show to you that use service offering table, which is our target table, doesn't contain any record. We did it earlier, but then again we are going to show that to you. I'm going to show that to you. This service offering table, which is our target table, doesn't have any record right now. Now I'm going to transform. When I transform, it will ask me first a confirmation step, right? So I pick the import set, that we created earlier. So that import set is here. Now using the same import set and the service offering transformation map that we just created, I'm going to transform the data, meaning I'm now going to pull data from this import set table and transform it and bring that into the off target table. So that's what I'm going to do right now with the click of this transform button. So now that I click transform button, it is transforming and it brought data into the table. So let's go and quickly check the target table now. If I go and refresh list, see the data has now come into the target table, right? And then the import set, which was initially into the loaded state, has now changed to the processed state, right? So the data that we had into the import set is now processed, right? Because the ultimate goal of having this import set was to bring data from this Excel file to the service offering table, which is now done. After transformation, we are able to send data from the service offering Excel file to service offering ServiceNow table, the target table. So that's done, right? So after that's done, the state of the import set changes to the processed state, right? Now you can go ahead and clean up this import set table. You don't need it now. If it is not a repetitive activity that you want to have, you can go ahead and delete this, or you can go ahead and clean this import set. I'm going to delete related transform map and delete the import set, right? So which essentially means, since now we have filled data here, we have something here, something here. So our target table is now filled with data, which was initially blank. It's now filled with data, right? And the data came from the Excel file. Now since this has been done, you can go ahead and delete all these. You don't require it because you have the data into your target table. That's what we did. We went ahead and deleted the import set. I just wanted to show that even if we delete that import set, we are not going to destroy anything into the target table. The target table still has the data with the 11 records that we insert in the table, right? That's very simple. Now that we have done that, we can go ahead and close the update set, right? The update set was in progress. Now I can go ahead and complete this and update it, right? This update set has been completed. Now the completed update set can be exported to XML. And this XML, I am going to give it to you so that you can import within your instance. Any questions? I hope this was pretty much clear. The only confusion I could see yesterday was the moment when I deleted a table. And that was because I didn't have right scope chosen, right? Any questions? Sam, Shweta, Abhi, Vikrant, Shweta. Okay. Sam,
I got it.
sorry, what was that,
Can you
Sam?
hear?
Do you have a question, Sam?
I said I got it.
Okay, thank you. Now, now the task for you is to go ahead with the sample XML and CSV files along with this Excel file. Don't just use the sample data, the service offering data. You can use any other data as well, any other Excel file to import data, right? Just create an appropriate target table in ServiceNow so that you can accommodate the data that you bring from the Excel file, right? So you can use any Excel file, even large Excel files having a lot of data and then import it, right? So try doing that. CSV, XML, and XLS and XLSX, all of these. Okay. Now if I go back to load data, let me see. There is one thing known as data source. Okay. I think we didn't discuss about data source. We picked file and then we, you know, from the file chose a file dialog box that we had, open dialog box, we chose the file and then we imported data in there. The other option that we have is the data source. We need to see what this data source is. Okay. Let's go to this data source link. The radio button that we have here is data sources. If within the administration section, if I go to data sources, I'll see a list of 14 items available here right now, sample ones. The 14 data sources are created, right? Out of these 14 data sources, we also see service offerings.xls file, right? The one that we created. One was created yesterday, another one was created today. These are the data sources created already, right? So if I go back to load data and I pick service offering XLS data source now, and I create table and insert data, I don't have to specify file. It will automatically pick the file which was created as a data source, right? So you define a data source there. You are not using any ad hoc data source, right? Now, let's look into this example LDAP users. So this is a data source that has been created earlier. This is the sample data source that has been created, where you create, you define a source of data from where you want to pull data from, right? Like the name of the data source here is example LDAP user. Import set table label name is, there is no label associated to it. The import set table name is LDAP import, right? Meaning you are going to bring data from the external data source into the LDAP import set table, and then using the type LDAP, you are going to target LDAP targets, which is user. Let's not confuse. I'll get back to data sources and I'll create one. See, this is basically a scenario where, again, the same scenario. Do you have same table? But let's assume that this table that you have, this Excel file or data source that you have, is not actually an Excel file. This is a table created on some remote server. Let's say you have a database server, right? You have a database server. We are assuming that you have a database server which is at a remote location, right? Let's say this is a database server from Sam's Pizza Company, right? And then you have this service now here. We have the ServiceNow instance, right? And these are remotely. These are not on the same server. ServiceNow is hosted somewhere else, and database server is somewhere else, right? Now, this table, the service offering table, is, let's assume the database server that we have here is, let's assume the Oracle database. And using this Oracle database, you have created a table known as service offering table, right? So you have the table here. Table name is service offering, right? So this service offering table contains this structure, right? And these are remote servers. Now let's assume the database that you have here and the target table that we created. The target table that we created is service offering. We created this target table here, but then instead of importing data from the Excel file, we are now importing data from a remote database, which is from Sam's Pizza Company and which is located at the remote location, right? Let's highlight this remote location for a second because that's important. We need to highlight that. So I'll pick this brush and I'll highlight this, right? We are at a remote server. So from this remote server, we want to import data into ServiceNow, right? So for that, what we'll do is we'll create a bridge, and the bridge in this case will be a data source, right? So this data source will act as a bridge between the Oracle database server that you have and the ServiceNow table that you have here, right? And this data source will have information like server address, which is in form of IP address. The first information it contains is the server IP address. And then on the server, what is the name of the database? Because this Oracle database server may have different other databases. So you will have database name, you will have port name, on what port you want to expose this connection, between the Oracle database server and ServiceNow database instance. And then you will have, after port name, you will also have the table name that you want to refer to. You will provide the query, SQL query that will be used to bring data, or SQL query, or you identify if you want to bring all data, right? Then you provide a valid username for this database here, and you provide a password for this for this Oracle database here, right? So these are typically all the information that you will have to supply when you access a database, right? Whenever you access a database, you have to supply these information, right? For that matter, you have to have this data source in place. Let's go ahead and see. So this data source could be of a file type, but with file type data source we already did using the load data and service offering Excel file. We did that, so we are kind of ignoring the file type data source right now. We'll go and pick JDBC data source. I'll name it as remote. I'm going to refer to a database which is on my server in AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. So I'll refer to this AWS data source. I'll name it as AWS data source, right? And then I'm not going to use mid server purposefully right now. I'm going to pick format as, see, I can pick Oracle, SQL Server, or MySQL. Right now, the database that I have is MySQL, so I'm going to pick MySQL here. And before I do that, I'll show you, this is a server, 54. This is a server that I have where I have a database and I can interact with this server. I, I have this IP address for the server, right? I have some programs hosted on this server. So if I hit this IP address, I'll get some program hosted here, right? And on this server, I have my MySQL database installed. I just connected here on the MySQL database to see how many databases I have. So it shows me that I have 5 databases: Information Schema, MySQL, Performance Schema, Sony App DB, with WN, Mob Admin, and with the Nation, right? So this is kind of information that we are looking here. We got the IP address, which is this one. We got the database names. Out of these database names, I can pick one database. I know the port name for the port which is used to access MySQL database is 3306. So I'll have this. If I pick, let's say, this one, this database, I'll do use, and I can show tables within this database, right? Using show tables, I can see there are these many 4 tables associated. So I can pick any database here. For example, I can pick, let's say, features table, right? So I got the table name, which is features. Now I can build a query, and I know the username used to access this as well, right? I can use using root and something like root password, right? Database name that we chose is something like this, and the IP address that we chose is, right? So we got all the information that we needed to create a data source. So let's go ahead and create AWS data source, MySQL DB, right? Database name is, port is, username is, and password is, server is, and the query that we talked about. I'm going to pick all rows from the table. You can go ahead and pick a specific SQL as well. Like you could write select this, this, this from table 1, something like this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick all rows from the table. And then we already decided the table name is going to be features. So I'll pick features in here. I'll put query timeout out as 30 seconds and query connection timeout as 30 seconds, and I'll save the record. Okay. let's put a import set table as well. I'll name it as IMP features table, and then I'll save it. Right? So the data that I import from this table goes into the IMP features table, which is the import set table in our case. Right? Let's try to do test load 20 records and see if we are able to do that. Now, when I try to do that, it says access denied to this user, which essentially means that my database here, the MySQL database, denied the user root from this IP address, right? So I have to resolve this. So for that, I have to do an entry in the user table, just to make sure that I give appropriate access to the user, root user, from that IP address. And the reason being, ServiceNow throws different IP addresses we each time we try to access it, right? See, this is a free instance. I'm pasting it here. It is giving me this IP address, root at this IP address. But if I go back, return to data source, and I do another test load, see the IP address may change. The IP address has now changed to 15. See, it was initially 67.8. It is now 103, 67.15. Right? So this is why my instance of database is not allowing me to bring data into this database, right? I can go ahead and find out a way to include all these data, all these users with these settings, so that even if the IP addresses changes, my instance will allow to import data from that data, right? Let me see. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, I have this command here. Using that, what I'll do is I'll pick the IP addresses. I'll create a record for this IP address. This is not related to ServiceNow, but I have to make this work, so I'm going to do this. This is wrong. What is the, no, this is wrong. Let me see the correct syntax. MySQL. So it should be. and I need to find that. Yeah, this is the syntax. So I'll go ahead and put the IP address as 103.236.7 and 8. That's the 7.8. It's going to be this. Next time it was 15. So this is really not an elegant way of doing that, but we can't help it because ServiceNow keeps throwing different IP addresses for this demo instance, right? If it was a production paid instance, it will not throw different dynamic IP addresses. But for this, they do not allow to do that. They keep throwing dynamic IP addresses. So I'll go and add all those IP addresses here so that my root user is allowed to access the database using any of these IP addresses, right? So I'll simply go ahead and add all the IP addresses here. This is database. This is not related to ServiceNow. I'm assuming that you know something about databases. So 103.236.7.15. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. 8. We did it for 8. Let's go back. Try to go data. 14. See, different IP addresses it is throwing every time. That's why I'm having hard time adding all these IP addresses. It's again saying access denied for this root user 8. Should not say that. 103.236.7.8 IP address is correct. So table that we selected was from the blue and mauve admin. Blue and mauve admin. Yeah, so we have all these records created. 67. So still it is showing some access issue, right? So if we get this resolved, all we'll be able to do is to import data from that remote server on this import set IMP features table, right? I'll really have to add and see on the MySQL server side that my server is not denying access to the request made by ServiceNow, right? But the user ID that I am having here, root user ID with the different IP addresses ServiceNow is throwing, the combination is not just working here on this database right now, right? So conceptually, that's all. We'll have to see. I'll see if I can make the connection here in MySQL database. If I am able to do that, I'll show that to you, right? But the bottom line is you have to get your user authenticated there, and user should be allowed to get access to the database server. So if you have that access using this data source, you will be able to pull data from the data source on the remote server within your ServiceNow instance, and then you can apply transformation map on that table, right? Like if you go here and you create a new transformation map, you will be able to see that table import features that will come here, that has not been created yet. So that import features will be having that data within here, and then you have also the ability to schedule these imports, right? The imports that we are doing, for example, the service offering import that we did using Excel file, or the features import that we are going to do using the data source that we just created, right? Where we are trying to access the features table from this mob admin database. So if we are doing that, and if we want to bring data from this table on a periodic basis, then you have to use this in schedule import sets, where you can go ahead and create a schedule of import sets, right? You will specify the data source. You will go ahead and pick the AWS data source here, and then define the frequency when you want to do this import, right? So that's something that we can do, right? I'll try to see if my database is allowing. I'll try to fix that. If I'm able to fix that on the database side, I'll demo that to you one more time. Okay? Because that's not service now. That's a different stuff. That's